Video is going to be on how to restring a Yamaha GUITALELE. It's going to be a long video, no doubt about that, so if you want a 5-minute explanation, then this is not the video for you. I don't make short videos. What we see here is my GUITALELE that used to be a very light color, and I stained it. I didn't do the greatest job, but I love cherry wood, and I decided to stain it. It came out okay. Not great, but it came out okay. And you can see over here, there's a little bit of stain on here because I took the strings off, but then I restained it and I didn't take off the strings, so it kind of looks like a mess. This GUITALELE, I'm going to play it in a minute, it's kind of out of tune, but the GUITALELE is a 6-string ukulele that is tuned to the 5th fret of a guitar. So it's a high-pitched thing, it sounds like a uke. A uke is tuned to the 5th fret of a guitar normally, but I replaced it with strings that made it tune to the tuning pitch of a guitar with EAD GBE. I'm going to show you what the strings are and what you need to do. I'm also going to show you how to do this little looping thing over here and how you're supposed to do the restringing over here. I'm an acoustic player, so I just posted a video on restringing a classical guitar with ball end strings, and that was really easy to do, even though it took me about 2.5–3 hours. This is not so easy, but I'm going to show you how to do it in the video. So let me play it a little bit. I really am not a good player. Again, I do acoustical. I'm not good with lead. I'm not good with classical or individual notes fingering all over the fretboard, but let me play it. I'm going to do a few chords. The hard thing about this is if you really don't have small fingers, it's kind of difficult to play. And you really end up playing in the first couple of frets because you can see my fingers just don't have a lot of room to do this. But if you're good with lead, then you can really move around and so I use it for messing around with scales and when I'm relaxed and I want to lay down on the sofa and just strum something. I went into the 3rd fret, not enough room. My fingers went into the 6th fret and I got a really bad bar chord. So I'm going to show you how to restring this thing right now. Video that I just posted on how to restring a classical guitar with the ball end. I removed all strings, cleaned everything up. You can see how dusty and filthy this is. And I don't like to do that. I like to do one string at a time. Why? So that you keep the tension on the neck, which I think is important. You don't want to remove all of these and then start tightening up the neck again. So I'm going to do one string at a time. The other advantage is it lets you see what you need to do. This is a little bit tricky, but we'll get through it. With the ball end, it's not a big issue. When you are restringing, and you can see how each one of these are individual, I just wrap them. Sometimes if you want to get really fancy, you can take the extra looping of the wires and chain them all the way down and loop them and brace them together. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to be putting on regular strings. And so let's take a look. The most important things you want to do right now, if you have a camera, take a picture of what you're going to be taking off, or you can just look at my little video over here. That's mostly what you're going to be doing, is we're going to be making some knots. And there are 2 different ways to do this. I'm going to show you what they are. You want to take a photograph. You also want to take a photograph of this part of your GUIT, just so you can see how the strings are routed. And the inside strings, they go all the way to the edge, and then they put them as far as they can over here, and then over here, they're same thing, they're pushed in between the brace and the hole, and on the 6th string and the 1st string, you go from that hole towards here. Hole towards here, these from the hole towards the inside. So that's what you want to do, is get a photograph And here we go. I'm going to clean this sucker up right now and show you what strings you need to use. If you're going to be keeping it the original, then you just want to use regular, I don't even know what you want to use. I don't know. All I know is that I didn't like it sounding like a uke. I wanted it to sound like a guitar. I wanted it to be a lower pitch. And so I bought some strings. So let me clean it up and I'll show you what you need. Now before you start, what I would suggest is get a screwdriver, tighten the screws over here. Don't excessively tighten them, just make sure that they're not loose or wobbly. These don't have screws on the end of the tuning pegs. Some of them might, but the GUITALELE doesn't. It depends on if you change the tuners. So tighten up your screws. There's an incredible amount of dirt and dust in there because this place is dusty and I don't clean this thing too often. So go in there and try to remove the dust and dirt. And I would not oil these. I would not put any lubrication on there at all. And that's what I'm going to do, is clean everything up. If you like my videos, thumbs up, subscribe, like, help me out. Please do a donation. Ask for my PayPal if you want to leave me a donation. And I'm going to finish dusting this thing off, get the tuners a little bit cleaned up, and then we're going to start taking the strings off. This is the important stuff that you need to know. The string goes over. The string is going to go into the hole on the top. It is going to come out over here. You can see it comes out over here. It loops around your string and goes under over here. Not that hard to do, but it's not that easy when you're trying to do it for the first time. It's a small GUITALELE. The exact same thing over here. The string goes through the hole, comes up, comes out of the hole, goes up, loops around, and locks down over here. So you're really just making a tiny little loop, and then you take this string and you pull it to tighten this a little bit, and then you start wrapping it around your tuning pegs. So you're going to do that for the 3 large strings, 6, 5, and 4. Now, when you get over to 3, 2, and 1, what you see over here, there are 2 ways to do this. This is the easiest one to notice because it's got the stain on it. Since you don't have a ball end, the ball end would be very easy, but since there is no ball end on the end of the string, what you need to do is make a tiny little knot. And you're going to want to do that first before you do anything else. You're going to want to make a tiny little knot over here. Just a standard knot. Everyone knows how to make a little knot. Just loop it through and make a knot. And then, after you get that knot on the end, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to have to put your string through first. If you don't want to, then make the knot and then put this end through and feed it that way, feed it through the hole this way. And then you're going to take the string, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to wrap it around with a loop. You're going to wrap it around with a loop and put it under there. And this knot, the idea of this knot is that if it tries to come loose, this should stop it. You could see that would stop it, that would stop it. The other thing that they do is they put 2 knots on here. So you would go in here and you would push the string through, you would loop it around once, and you would loop it around again and make a knot. It's really up to you which way you want to do this. They show knots on the internet. This is just the easiest way to do it, especially on this GUIT, which is so little. I might do both of them, I'm not sure yet. But that's the important stuff that you need to know. How to do 6, 5, 4, and then 3, 2, 1. And the reason you're doing this is because these strings are so small. Not much smaller than this, but these strings are so small that they might slip. They probably won't, but they might slip. And that's why they put this knot on there to stop it from slipping out from under the string over here. So the first step, you want to do this, and then the other thing that you want to do, as I told you before, is you want to look very carefully at how these strings are routed. Going up this way, the inside ones stick up towards the edge, towards the center, and then the outer ones stay towards the outer part over here, inside stays towards here, and obviously the middle goes in there, but the outers go from the center outward, and the other two go from the center inward. Center inward, center inward, center outward. What I'm going to be using. I didn't know what strings to use. I contacted Diodario in email and I asked them, and they had absolutely no idea. Other companies make strings that are made for this. They cost a little bit more. They're made for the small guitaleles and the small guitars. Diodario told me, they did their calculations and they said this thing would work perfectly. The half-size classical guitar string, and we have the number over there. EJ27N, half normal tension, and that's what's on this guitalele now, and it sounds incredible. So buy these strings. They're not that expensive. They're much cheaper than buying these special guitalele strings, and this is what you end up getting. Here we go. Time to unscrew and get this job going. Now with the Diodarios, they have labels on there so that you know what strings you're going to be putting where. You can see over here, 5 is the A, B is 2, G is 3, D is 4, where's that 6? E6. So we've got straight strings, no balls on the end. That didn't sound right. No balls on the end. Oh my goodness. And it really doesn't matter which end you put on the tuner. It really doesn't matter. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the string that you need, you're going to pull the label off, and we're going to unwind the string from the tuner. I know it's going to be going from center towards the end. And then I'm going to go take this string off over here, do a little bit of dusting, a little bit more dusting, and then show you how to make this little spirally natto over here. Also, the other trick is, how short do you make these things? I don't even know. There's not even a formula, because you can see over here, some of these things I have lots of wraps, and others I have only 2 or 3 or 4. So until you figure out what formula you need to get the accurate wrap, you're not going to have this perfectly even on all the strings. See all that dirt and corrosion? Not good. Not good at all. Look at the difference between an old string and a new string. Look at all that dirt and filth and corrosion. So I know you should replace these probably. With acoustic, I replace them every 3 months, maybe at the most every 4 to 6 months, but I try to do it sooner. With the classical, it's not so easy, and I don't play it that often, so this is well over a year, maybe even longer. With the Gut, you're going to be turning it counterclockwise. That's to your left, for people that don't know what that means, counterclockwise. You're going to tighten it by turning it to your right, but you're going to loosen it by going to the left. Unlike an acoustic, which has each side turns in a different direction, on this, all of them are going to tighten going to the right, and they're going to loosen going to the left. So you will turn this guy, or girl, turn it to the left, start loosening it. And again, you don't want to take all of these off at the same time. Chances are, mainly because you don't want to break the tension on the neck, and the other reason is that if this thing is not glued down, it's going to fall off, and then you're going to have to mess with that. So I'm going to undo this now, and then I'll complete the video for, I'm going to undo this now, and then I'll take the string off of this end and show you how to put on a new one. What I noticed is that it looks like the nylon ones already have a little knot on there, so you're not going to have to mess with that. The new ones, they already have the knot. Here we go. I don't have one of those fancy over the head tripod setups, so I'm going to do the best I can to show you this. These strings are not really long, so you're not going to have much choice in wasting a lot of string length. So what you would do is you're going to have to pull this out so you've got some working room, and then you're going to end up pulling it back. But what you do is you loop normal. Okay, if you saw, well, you can see what's done over here. It goes out of the hole, it goes behind the screw, behind the string, and then loops. But there's a different way to do that to make it a little bit more effective. And what that is you put it around the string, and then you, rather than put it around, and I told you it's not that easy. These strings are not that easy to work with, and if you've got really big fingers, it's going to be even worse. I think you can see this, and I'm doing this because I want you to see what you're going to be dealing with. Okay, so this is, this is what I had originally. You can see how it goes through, and it makes the loop like this. Well, the other way to do it is, instead of putting it under, is to put it over and then pull it down. And I'll show you what that means. Is, let me get a little bit more string room over here. So what that means is that you would go behind, like I showed you before, but instead of going under, you're going to go over. You're going to go over this string. You're going to go over it, and then under. You're going to go over and under, and you're going to grab this. I know people make these videos, and you go like, well, I didn't see what they did. I'm trying to zoom in as close as I can. If you need to, go put this on slow. I don't know if you can do it on a cell phone, but on the desktop YouTube, you should be able to slow it down. But let me get my hand out of the way. I want you to see what I did. String goes through the hole, comes out, goes around the string and underneath. So what I'm going to have to do now is get some needle nose pliers to grab onto this string so I can pull it and get a tight knot. This is really the best way to do it. This, especially on the, when you're dealing with the thin nylon strings, then if you don't do this double knot, or if you don't put the knot on the end, you're going to have a slippage problem, and nobody wants to have slippage. So now I'm going to take this part of the string and I'm going to pull. You don't want to break your bridge, but you've got to do a pull, and you can see how nice that is. That's not going to come out. That knot's not going to come out. And I'm going to pull it. Now, you can see what I just did with the string. I kind of messed it up there. Get better needle nose pliers, so I've just wasted part of my string, and I don't really have a lot of space because they don't give you a lot of string on this. But you saw what you need to do. That's how you make the knot. I'm going to go finish this off, and then I'm going to start wrapping it. Not there. What you want to use is, if you use flat needle nose, you're going to have a problem with this. If you have serrated, it will bite down on the string a little easier. I cut it, I did it again, and it started to unwind. That's just what you're going to be dealing with these strings because they're very thin. You might not even want to use a tool on there. You might just want to use your finger, but these are going to try to unwrap, as you saw. And now I'm going to go to the other end, and I'm going to start wrapping the string. Again, sorry about the quality. I don't really have an overhead video tripod. If you want to leave a donation, I'll go buy one. There are two ways to do this. And if you want to look at my classical restringing video, you will see I show both of them. But the first one is you put the string through, and you can, if you don't want to mess with it, if you just want to start tightening, you can do that. You're going to be fine, especially on something like this. So you can put the string through and just hold the end and start winding, and you should be fine. Or there's the string over there. You can see it's hanging from the bottom. Or you can bring it up. And the reason I'm having so much trouble, it's not that I'm a spaz, it's that these strings are tiny. They are so thin. So you have a choice now. You have a choice of, let's make sure that's in the video, because there's not a lot of string here. You have a choice. You can go in here and just do a standard knot now. Make a knot, take this piece, loop it under, wrap it around this string, and make a tiny little simple knot. Or you can wrap it, now that you brought this in here, you can take this, see we went down and then we went up. You can take the tip of this and put it back in the hole. And that's always good to put it in the hole if you want to. So I'm going to turn off the, you see I get a little bend over here. I'm going to go and shove this end into the hole, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Then it will be a tight thing and I'll be able to wrap it around properly. Doing this for the first time, you might not want to mess with this, especially if you've got big fingers, because this is not easy to do. But the string goes over the top, it goes into the center hole, and then you can see down here it comes, it loops around, and I'm pushing it back into the hole. Now, this is very easy to do with the smaller strings, not so easy to do with the bigger strings, because the holes really aren't that big, and there's not a lot of slop. But I've inserted the end into the right side. Now I'm going to try to pull on this part from the back and see if it slides in. It might not. It's a difficult thing to do, and this is total overkill, but let's see if it comes out the back now. There it is. So you can see the end came out the back. Again, if you start using needle nose pliers on here, these strings are so thin, they're just going to fall apart. So what I'm going to do now that I've got that little end, you've got to be careful, because this is definitely going to want to pull back out. But that's why this is a lot easier to do when you don't have all the strings on here. So I'm going to see if I can hold this little nubby down, which I don't think I can, especially with the camera here. But the goal is to hold this little piece down that you push through and try to pull this part of the string back without that small piece coming out. Doable? Yes. Definitely not easy, especially with the other strings in the way. Tried it, but there's no way to do it. Not with these strings are just way too thin. They'll fall apart. So you're not going to be able to do pushing it back in. So the other option you have is to make a knot. Looks kind of sloppy, and you might be able to cut it off, but it looks ridiculous. Or you can just do what I did over here, just wrap these things around. Or if you want to, when you wrap it, put the string lengthwise and then start wrapping so it holds that string down. So you can see what it looks like with a knot, very sloppy, no way to push it in to protect it like I was trying to do in this video and my other video on doing classical, which has a longer string and a bigger string. These are very thin and very flimsy. So I'm going to take this knot out, but that is an option, and then I'm just going to wrap it the normal way. Got the first string on, not the greatest, and the problem, like you see, is there is just these strings are not long. They're made for a half-length guitar. So when you're buying strings for a full-length classical, the strings are huge. They're probably like 8-10 inches longer than they need to be. This is the original string. I use a little bit of space over here putting this knot on here, and then we go down over here, and there is, I didn't even cut anything off yet. What I needed to do is I had to wrap it underneath. You can see I had to do that so that I could grab the string and tighten this thing down without it coming off. So it really doesn't leave me with a lot of wraps, which is unfortunate. Maybe I'll be able to get another wrap out of this. But you just got to do whatever works so that you're able to hold this down. Again, with these things, it'd be nice if you could wrap it underneath. I was trying to wrap this thing underneath one of the wines, so that but I couldn't do it because this thing kept on slipping. So I got my little knot in there, or not really a knot, just a loop around, just so that it was able to hold it while I started tightening. Let's let's get the tuner now. And this is, again, I'm not a pro. I'm sure a place that does this every day would have no problems with this at all. But I don't do... Wow, that's barely even... It's almost in tune, and it's so loose. That's the problem with the guitaleles. The strings are... If you were using regular gut strings, this would not be a problem. But because I'm going with the sound of the... trying to tune it down for the guitar thing, the strings are really loose and sloppy. But it still works, and it's still awesome. And you get yourself like a quarter-sized mini guitar. And this is a good half an hour for one string. You can imagine what it's like when you start getting down here doing these knots. Now, you saw I was able to put that extra knot in there, so you don't need me to show you how to do that on these others. You've got the choice like I showed you, just wind it around once. You can do that for the 3 strings like that, for the 6, 5, and 4. But over here, if you have the knot at the end of the string, which this package comes with, then you'll be able to just do one loop. And if you don't have the knot at the end of the string, either add your own knot or loop it around like I did over here. So I'm going to restring the rest of these things. Again, remember, this goes from the hole to the outer side. This goes from the hole to this side. This goes from the hole to here. From the hole to the inside, from the hole to the inside, from the hole to the outside. After I get this strung up in another hour or two, I'll come back and show you what it looks like and what it sounds like. The 5th string went much quicker. I was just going to do the single loop, but I ended up doing the double loop. What I did over here, just so I could show you the difference, is I just, that's the string coming through. I didn't do this little knot over here. I just put the string straight through and started looping. Again, I need to make a correction. These are really short. The reason these are short is because these used to be on here a couple years ago before I stained this thing, and I removed them and I just put them in the package. So that's why these are already cut for the length for this unit. When you buy them in the package new, they are much longer and you're not going to have as much trouble with this. So you can see I've only got a few wraps on here, but that is because these were already cut for the original install when I replaced them for the first time. So I've got the 5th string on. I'm going to see the marks over there. That's all the dirt from when these were on originally. That's the fret. Those are the fret marks. So I'm going to tighten down the 5th string now, get it all tuned up, and then finish this off and show you what it looks like. But it does take a long time. Don't think you're going to do this in 5 minutes. And just so you can see, this is the 3rd string. It wraps from the center going into here, and on this one, it's kind of sloppy. Not a lot of wraps. It's wrapped underneath. Only a few wraps over there, a lot more wraps over here. So it's not like you have to do everything absolutely perfectly. That was the one I just put on, looped around. This one, it just went straight through the hole. And just do the best that you can to make you, right in there, you should be able to see where I was talking about putting it through the hole twice. That's through the hole twice. See over there? It's I think you can see it. The string goes through that hole twice. The string over here goes through that hole twice. And that string goes through that hole twice. The first 3 big strings on, and these were very difficult, but the 4th and the 3rd went much faster because I didn't screw with that little knot. Again, these strings are not brand new. It's a little more difficult to do in this video. When you get the newer strings, they are going to be much longer. You're going to have more slop to play with to make this work and to get your knots on there. These were, as I said, removed, so these are exact length almost. Originally when I was talking about the knot, you're not going to have a knot on there. This has a knot on there because I removed this thing when I stained it. So easiest way would be definitely to just put a little knot on there and then go in there and make that one little loop. Since I've got the knot, I'm not going to redo it because my string length is limited now. Or if you don't want to do the knot, it's really easy. You just throw the knot on there and then do your one single loop and you're done. If you don't want to do that, then go in there and do this thing where the string, as I showed, goes around and loops on top and then under and then comes out. That's the third string. Now, I did say that I already had the knot in there, but if you don't, if you make the knot, it just loops around very easily. It took 2 seconds, probably 5 seconds, and this thing was there. It's going to be locked in place. It's not going to slip through here because it's got that extra knot. And then you just cut it off. You cut off the excess. If you're going to do, the nylon strings are even harder to work with than this skinny little wiry stuff that just unravels all over the place. So don't think that this is going to be easier. But if you put this little loop on here, if you put the knot on there, the loop pops on in 2 seconds. And it's just really quick, and then you go to the other side, and if you can double it into the hole, good for you. If you can't, then just wrap it like I showed you with the first 3 strings, 6, 5, and 4. Back of the number 3 string, see how I was able to double loop it through? It's a lot easier when you're dealing with the skinnier nylon string. They're thinner, and they go through the hole, and you have a lot more slack, so you're able to do this. Let me show you the front part of it now. So all you're going to need to do, because there's not a lot of slippage here, you'll be able to hold down this thing, keep that in the hole, and then pull this part and tighten it without this second piece slipping out. And then you can do your tighten down. I'll show you what that looks like. It by hand, I was able to hold that little piece in there and pull on the longer side. So now that I've got my double inside the hole, I'll just wrap it like I did the first 3. People, took about 2 hours. There are the knots. Small knot on the number 1, 2, and 3, looped around. A double loop on the 4, 5, and 6. You can see that they are much shinier, even though these are used strings. Notice these little dark lines over here? Those are fret marks from when I removed this a couple years ago to stain it. And so these strings are not brand new. That's the finished job. Not perfect. Oh, almost lost that. Number 6 is kind of sloppy with that knot that I threw in there. The others, I didn't put a knot in there. On the 1, 2, and 3, I doubled up in the hole like I was showing you. And very difficult to tune. Use a chromatic tuner. If you use a regular guitar tuner, this thing is all over the place. You're going to miss it because, like I said, when you're using these half-length strings, there's a lot of slop in here. It still sounds pretty good. It's a fun thing to play, but you're going to get slop. If you have a better idea, a better suggestion for the right strings, or if you're a company and you want to send me some strings for me to do a review on replacing strings on a Gut, I'd be more than happy to take your suggestions or advice. So again, this thing is slipping all over the place. The tuner is on. These are not the greatest, obviously. This is only about $100, but it's a great, I won't even say a toy. I did a couple reviews. I really didn't like this thing. Now I love it. It's a lot of fun to play. And if you've got small fingers, it's really good for having a mini guitar. If you don't have small fingers, good luck. You can probably do your open chords, and that's about it. Doing bar chords on this thing is really difficult. If you've got fat fingers, you're not going to be able to do it. I know somebody that plays lead guitar. He's got really big fingers. I gave this to him, and he was all over the place, and it sounded absolutely amazing. So for lead guitar or classical guitar where you're doing individual notes, it's a lot of fun if you know how to play that way. And now I'm going to just do a quick sample of some open chords so you can see what it sounds like, or hear what it sounds like with the new chords on here after I tune it one more time. The final comment that I wanted to add is that it appears that Diodario says you can use normal tension classical strings on the GUITALELE, which means that the strings I have on now, which maybe have a tension of about 69, 70, I might be able to use a tension of about 86, 88, something like that, which is the EJ34. So I just did a review of the EJ34 on a classical guitar. It's a standard nylon string, and I think I'm going to buy another set. I'm going to try it out on the GUITALELE and see if I can get better tension. These are low tension. These are made, again, for half length guitar, for GUITALELEs. These are made for half length guitars, but will work on a GUITALELE, and this is what Diodario recommended to me. But since Yamaha says that you can use normal tension, I am going to be trying the EJ34s on my next review, and if I break the bridge, then you'll see that happen live.